There were 37 people standing on my lawn, each holding paper plates and plastic forks. One guy even came prepared with his own Tupperware, like he was at a fully catered event. A toddler licked his lips in anticipation, while an elderly woman waved at me as if she were a guest of honor. And then there was Karina front and center rocking oversized sunglasses, a fake pearl necklace, and, of course, her trademark clipboard, like she had just planned a state dinner. The thing is, I hadn't invited a single one of them. Still in my slippers, I barely had a chance to say anything before someone shouted from the back, "Barbecue time, baby." The crowd roared with applause. That's when it hit me the neighborhood's biggest mistake wasn't showing up hungry. It was letting Karen think she could serve up my hospitality like it was part of her personal event plan. But what I was about to serve would be hotter than any wings I'd ever grilled. It was going to burn her entitlement to the ground. It all began 2 days earlier when I decided to throw a low-key backyard barbecue. Nothing big, just some ribs, smoked wings, and a few burgers for myself and 5 close friends. I even cleaned the grill and moved around the picnic benches. Cooking is my escape, not a performance. It's how I shut off my mind after a brutal work week, and that Saturday was supposed to be my mini vacation and therapy session all in one. But just as I was seasoning the chicken, in strutted Karina uninvited and completely unannounced. She didn't knock, just let herself in through the side gate like the place belonged to her. Her high heels tapped across my patio like a warning drumbeat. I turned, confused but polite. She didn't smile back. Instead, she scanned my yard with a calculating look and nodded, satisfied. "This is perfect," she muttered. I blinked. "Sorry, what's perfect, Karen?" I asked, still holding a bottle of cayenne pepper. She pointed to my setup at the benches, the fairy lights, the grill. "You're doing the HOA summer welcome buffet, right?" she said while typing something into her phone. I frowned. "What buffet?" Her smile returned. "The kind that feels like a trap. I sent out the announcement this morning. Didn't you see it?" she said cheerfully. "We're calling it barbecue and brews in the burbs. Everyone's super excited." I promised pulled pork, but if that's too much, just make extra wings. I stared at her, trying to decide if she had lost her mind. "Karen, I have no idea what you're talking about. I never agreed to host anything." Her smile tightened into something less friendly. "Don't be like that, Jay. You're always grilling, and people love your food. This is a great way for you to give back to the neighborhood, a community spirit, you know?" I opened my mouth, then closed it again. I had planned a small get-together with a few friends, not a community feast. She folded her arms. "You don't have to be so selfish. You always cook alone. Let others enjoy it with you. Oh, and the flyers are already out. I may have mentioned you'd cover all food and drinks." I dropped the seasoning bottle. "You what?" She shrugged like it was no big deal. "It already blew up in the HOA group chat. Don't ruin the fun, okay?" And just like that, she turned and walked off, looking like she'd just scored a deal with a top-tier caterer for free. I stood frozen for a moment, trying to process the insanity. Then my phone buzzed again and again. 25 messages in under 2 minutes, all from people I barely knew. They were asking what time the buffet started, what they could bring to keep it chill, and even if pets were allowed. One just said, "I'll bring wine, but I don't share." I was furious and dumbfounded. Karen had completely hijacked my weekend. My plans were toast, and my 5 friends were now texting me memes of overcrowded lawn parties. One of them sent a photo of Karen's flyer posted outside the community pool. It had my name in bold letters with the promise of free barbecue, unlimited wings. The background wasn't even my backyard, it was a stock image. My face turned red with anger. I wasn't just being used, I was being advertised. The next morning, things got worse. A neighbor I barely knew showed up at my door and handed me a box of paper napkins. "Can't wait for the buffet, man," he said with a wink. I could only nod, stunned, as I took the box like it was my official sentence. He leaned in and added, "Karen says you're making those sweet chili wings you're famous for. I've been dying to try them." And just like that, he was gone. That's when the spark was lit. Then it hit me, not a metaphorical spark, a real one. I stood there, staring into my spice cabinet at a lineup of peppers that could clear a room. Ghost peppers, Carolina Reapers, the kind of heat that came with warning labels and liability disclaimers. And just like that, The plan began to form. I wasn't going to cancel this hijacked barbecue number. I was going to cook, I was going to grill every single wing, and I was going to make sure Karen got exactly what she asked for and then some. First, I called my old college friend Raj. He runs a boutique pepper farm now, specializing in the kind of heat that makes grown men cry. He answered on the second ring. "Let me guess," he said. "Oh, nonsense again?" I filled him in. By the end, he was laughing so hard he had to mute himself. Then he promised to overnight his hottest peppers and a bottle of his infamous hot sauce, Lucifer's Tears. I thanked him and promised footage. Oh, there would be footage. I dusted off my old GoPros, charged the batteries, and set them up like I was filming a cooking show crossed with a wildlife documentary. One camera for the grill, one for the buffet table, one for the front yard, one across the street for the wide shots, every angle covered. If Karen wanted a production, I'd give her a full cinematic experience. I even made custom signs: Safe Wings on one side, Inferno Wings on the other, red font, bold lettering, underneath, in fine print, "Consume at your own risk." Just to be safe, I printed a stack of waivers and left them in a little basket at the table. Let no one say I didn't warn them. As the sun crept over the rooftops, I stood in my kitchen like a general preparing for battle. Apron on, gloves tight, spices arranged like a battle map. This wasn't just food anymore, it was justice served hot. By 8:30 a.m., I was 3 trays deep into wing prep and halfway through a bottle of ghost pepper extract that smelled like chemical warfare. The kitchen windows were fogged. My eyes were watering. My dog, Max, had retreated to the guest room after one unfortunate sniff. I wore goggles, gloves, and an apron that read, "Chief of Pain Delivery." This had become more than a prank, it was a culinary reckoning. Karen wanted the spotlight. She could have it, along with enough spice to make a fire-breathing dragon beg for mercy. By 9 a.m., the back table was set. Rows of trays labeled Inferno Batch and a few decoy trays of harmless, oat-flavored regular wings. The only edible food of the real wings I had prepped for my 5 actual friends was hidden in a cooler marked reserved for invited guests. Everyone else, well, they were about to take a surprise trip through the 9 circles of barbecue hell. The GoPros were on indiscreetly hidden. One looked like a potted plant, another a birdhouse. I even slapped a friendly little sticker on one. "Smile. It's barbecue time." Everything was in place. I set up the serving station along the back fence, chalkboard signs above it. One arrow read, "Mild day for the faint of heart." The other pointed toward the tray of blazing red wings and read, "Extreme eaters only." I underlined it twice and added, "Not for kids," in big block letters. At 10:30 a.m. sharp, came the first knock. It wasn't one of my friends. It was a couple I didn't recognize, dressed like they were heading to a music festival. The guy wore a fedora. The woman had sunglasses so big they could double as face shields. She held a reusable plate decorated with cartoon fruit around the rim. "Hey, neighbor," she chirped. "We came early to help set up." I blinked. "Set up what?" She giggled, like I'd told a bad joke. "Karen said you'd appreciate extra hands. We brought folding chairs." I looked at the stack of plastic chairs in their trunk. Then I smiled. A slow, calm, "I know something you do" kind of smile. "Of course," I said. "Come on in." Set them up by the fire pit. Her husband gave me a thumbs up. "Hope you made a lot of wings." That sentence would haunt the day, because by 11 a.m., my backyard was a full-blown block party except sponsored by Satan's Chili Garden. People were flooding in, chatting, laughing, clapping each other on the back, completely unaware of what was coming. A group of teens started setting up a Bluetooth speaker while 2 kids dashed across my lawn chasing a beach ball, knocking over my garden gnome in the process. Someone strolled in with a 6-pack of soda and hollered, "Who brought the karaoke?" And they like a final boss arriving in the last level. Karen made her grand entrance. She wore a floppy sun hat with a ribbon, carried a clipboard like a weapon, and sported a Bluetooth headset that made her look like she was coordinating a major music festival. She strutted in like she owned the entire cul-de-sac, already barking out instructions. "Tables there, drinks here. E&J, darling. I'll need your garden hose by the swing set in case anyone gets sticky fingers." I didn't respond. I didn't have to. The scent of ghost pepper wings was already hanging in the air like a spicy omen. and it wouldn't be long before it claimed its first victim. As I predicted, people swarmed the serving station like it was Black Friday at a big box store. I stood calmly behind the table, handing out paper plates and smiling as they gushed over the aroma. "These smell amazing. Are they sweet or tangy?" "Both," I replied evenly, pointing to the clearly marked signs. A few folks raised an eyebrow at the extreme heat warning, but nobody took it seriously. One guy even laughed and said, "Ha, you're hilarious," before grabbing 6. Karen, of course, was the loudest. "Oh please, I eat Thai food twice a week, this'll be nothing." I could already see the blush rising in her cheeks as she grabbed 3 wings and bit into one without hesitation. The moment stretched Ida silent, tensing until her eyes widened. She froze mid-chew, and a sound escaped her throat that was half reverse sneeze, half dry cough. Blinking rapidly, she began fanning herself with her clipboard. Her headset slipped off her head. Still trying to play it cool, she managed a strained mud-broken bar good, while beads of sweat raced down her temples. Around her, it began. The first guy to bite into a wing made a mad dash to the garden hose and aimed the nozzle directly at his mouth. A woman coughed so violently she knocked over the salsa bowl. A kid screamed, "It's fire chicken!" and flung his plate into the bushes. One man started jogging in circles around the picnic table like he could physically escape the spice. Karen tried to hold it together. She cracked open the soda and chugged it. Bad move via the carbonation only made it worse. Her voice was raspy when she managed to speak again, and she pointed a shaky finger at me. "What did you put in these?" I raised my hands in mock innocence. "Ghost pepper wings." "Karen, didn't you read the sign?" I gestured to the basket of waivers. Still gasping, she squinted toward it just as someone shouted, "We need milk." A neighbor bolted to their car and returned with a jug of almond milk, sparking a minor stampede. People were fanning their mouths, waving paper plates like desperate survival gear. One guy was under the patio umbrella, crying softly, muttering, "Why did I eat 3? I observed it all from my grill station with the serene satisfaction of a man watching a plan unfold flawlessly. I even offered wet napkins. Karen stumbled toward me, her makeup smudged, her expression wild. "You did this on purpose," she hissed. I tilted my head. "Did what? Cook food? Host the buffet you organized without asking me?" I gestured again to the signs. "I warned everyone. I even had waivers." "Want one?" I offered her a slip. She snatched it and ripped it in half. "You think this is funny?" I glanced around at the carnage in my backyard. Honestly, a little. Just then, my friend Tyler arrived, one of the 5 people I had actually invited. He looked around, taking in the chaos, the man drinking from the hose, and said, "What in the hot sauce hell did I miss?" I handed him a plate from the cooler of the mild batch. "You made it just in time." He took a bite, grinned, and asked, "These are awesome. What happened to everyone else?" I nodded toward the pepper-laced tray. "Karen threw a wing buffet. I just brought the flavor." He nearly choked laughing. "Dude, remind me never to get on your bad side." I grinned wider. "That's the idea." Now pass the ranch. By the time the sun began to set, my backyard looked like the aftermath of a food fight held in a sauna. People were slowly. By 5:09 p.m., the backyard had mostly cleared out. Guests wiped sweat from their brows, muttering about lawsuits and tongue damage. Karen was the last to leave, heels sinking into the grass with every furious step as she swore under her breath. I gave her a casual wave as she stormed off. Then, turning to the nearest security camera, I winked and whispered, "Coming soon to your screen, Karen's Spicy Nightmare, Episode 1. I shut off the grill with a flourish. Tomorrow, I thought, the real fire starts online. That night, my kitchen still smelled like a battlefield of ghost peppers and regret hanging in the air. I loaded the camera footage onto my laptop. It was perfect, high def, multiple angles, every glorious second of chaos captured with cinematic clarity. The crown jewel, Karen's transformation from smug party planner to scorched soula in under 5 bites. In one frame, she tried to maintain her composure while tears streamed down her cheeks and she attempted to issue party orders through what could only be described as a mouthful of magma. It had meme potential, legendary meme potential. I didn't add music, no voiceover, just clean edits, labeled it the Ghost Wing Incident, and scheduled it to go live on my food blog and YouTube channel the next morning. I didn't expect it to go viral, not yet. I just wanted documentation, a proof that I hadn't baited anyone, that every tray had been clearly marked, every waiver signed, that Karen had created this disaster, not me. Okay, a broken bar. Maybe I also wanted to take back the narrative she hijacked when she turned my quiet weekend into her HOA parade. The footage practically edited itself, from cheerful bites to screaming chaos. The sequence was a tragic comedy of heat-induced breakdowns. I added subtle captions like "Man tries to gargle soda, Karen attempts to sew a jug of milk, and kid declares chicken to be literal fire." One moment nearly broke me, a teenager flinging his plate and shouting, "Why is my face melting?" I laughed so hard I nearly choked. At 1:00 a.m., I made sure the waiver table was in the frame, every label clear, and I ended with a slow zoom on the chalkboard that read "Extreme Eaters Only." Karen in the background, red-faced, fanning her burning mouth with an HOA flyer. By morning, 50 views. By noon, 4,000. By dinner, over 25,000 and climbing fast. Comments rolled in faster than I could read. Most people were in stitches. Some begged for the recipe. Others debated whether ghost pepper wings should be regulated by the Geneva Convention. A few asked me to start a challenge series. I even got emails from hot sauce companies, prank content curators, and a chili farm in Arizona offering to sponsor my next event. But the best comment? "This is why you never RSVP to anything hosted by someone named Karen." The neighborhood, however, was split. Some neighbors found it hilarious, saying it served Karen right. Others thought I'd gone too far and accused me of inciting culinary trauma across the cul-de-sac. Then the HOA president, Mr. Arnold, called. He sounded like a man who'd just been asked to referee a chainsaw duel. "Jay," he said slowly, "I'm not saying I approve of the video A Broken Bar, but I watched it 3 times. Spilled my coffee every time Karen tried to scream." I bit back a grin. "So Broken Bar what now?" he sighed. "Karen filed a formal complaint. She wants us to fine you, maybe even suspend your community privileges." I raised an eyebrow. "We have privileges?" "Apparently, we do now." That afternoon, I received a certified letter from the HOA, dramatic as you'd expect. Phrases like malicious intent and willful endangerment were tossed around like glitter at a lawsuit-themed birthday party. Karen's attached statement accused me of psychological harm, public defamation, and attempted poisoning via sadistic culinary deception. She even claimed her sunglasses had melted and her lipstick had chemically fused to her upper lip. She demanded a public apology, removal of the video, and compensation for emotional distress. I read the letter twice, then I calmly opened my laptop, screenshotted the waiver table again, and emailed it to the HOA board with a simple caption, "Kindly refer to Exhibit A." I didn't remove the video. Instead, I uploaded a follow-up, a short, behind-the-scenes montage showing me preparing the wings, placing warning labels, stacking waivers, and mounting GoPros. No commentary, just quiet, methodical receipts. The caption, "In case anyone's still confused." That video hit half the views of the original within 12 hours and made double the impact. Suddenly, the comment section turned savage. Viewers were stitching clips, recreating Karen's meltdown, even reenacting her facial expressions. One guy did a full dramatic reading of her whole letter Broken Bar in opera voice, and posted it. By the next day, the video had taken on a life of its own. Someone had even labeled my backyard on Google Maps as Karen's hot wing area. I couldn't help but laugh. What really surprised me, though, was the sudden silence from Karen. She hadn't posted in the community forum all day, and that was a woman who usually had something to say about trash bins being 2 inches off the curb or lawns getting too wild. It wasn't until I ran into her at the grocery store that I saw just how deep the humiliation had sunk. She wore an oversized scarf, massive sunglasses, and walked like she was avoiding cameras or flashbacks. I spotted her in the hot sauce aisle. She spotted me back, turned around immediately, and walked off without a word. Back home, the reactions were mixed. Some neighbors dropped by just to laugh. One even brought flame-shaped cookies. Another handed me a cartoon sketch of Karen breathing fire. But not everyone was amused. One sour-faced guy asked, "Why didn't you make everything mild and label only the spicy tray?" I calmly explained that I had every tray had labels, and guests signed waivers. He frowned and muttered, "Well, next time maybe add a big sign that says a prank not included." I smiled and thanked him for the feedback, all while mentally jotting down a ghost pepper lemonade recipe. Then came the twist. 2 days later, a mysterious package arrived on my doorstep. No return address. Inside was a plastic trophy that read, 2025 cul-de-sac Iron Chef of Spice. Taped to the base was a sticky note. "Sorry about Karen. Keep cooking." That was the moment I knew. Even if the neighborhood wouldn't say it out loud, most of them appreciated what I'd done. I didn't start a fire, I just handed out matches. With warning labels. That evening, I uploaded one last video. It wasn't spicy or chaotic, just a calm thank you message. I stood by the grill, held up the trophy, thanked everyone for their support, and teased a future episode titled The Fire Extinguisher Fee. I never mentioned Karen. I didn't need to. Her silence said more than I ever could. As night settled in, I sat outside with Max, sipping lemonade and watching the view counter tick up like a heartbeat. Somewhere across the street, behind tightly drawn curtains, Karen was probably typing her next formal complaint. But I had a new plan, a better one. This time, it wasn't just about hot wings, it was about truth. And the entire neighborhood was finally paying attention. Then came the envelope, thick, fancy, with gold trim, the kind you'd expect for a wedding invite. Not a disciplinary notice, but that's exactly what it was. The HOA, spurred by Karen's persistent pestering, had scheduled an emergency hearing regarding my aggressive culinary retaliation and failure to preserve peaceful community dynamics. That last bit made me laugh. Karen had incited what was basically a food riot on my lawn, and now I was being accused of disturbing the peace. The hearing was set for Friday evening in the HOA conference room, a fancy name for the old library annex behind the pool house. I tossed the letter on the counter and looked at Max, who glanced up from his chew toy like he was ready for a road trip. "Well, buddy," I said, "looks like we're going to court." "Sort of." I showed up 10 minutes early, dressed in jeans and a polo shirt, casual but confident. The room was already filling with board members and nosy neighbors, most of whom were clearly just there for the drama. At the far end sat Karen, arms folded, lips pursed into her usual smug smile. Next to her was a man in a wrinkled suit who looked like he'd printed his law degree at Kinko's, probably a cousin playing amateur attorney. I gave her a polite nod. She didn't return it. Mr. Arnold, the HOA president, cleared his throat and welcomed everyone with a dry summary of the agenda. I didn't listen. I was watching Karen. More specifically, I was waiting for the exact moment she'd realize her entire case was about to collapse. She spoke first, of course, with her trademark theatrical flair. She claimed the ghost pepper wings had caused widespread distress. Children cried, adults suffered. One guest allegedly almost fainted. She blamed me for everything: a public humiliation, psychological trauma, and even digestive damage. She said she was having nightmares about fire. Her faux lawyer jumped in, citing HOA bylaws and using terms like negligence and hostile intent. He brought up some obscure clause about needing prior approval for community events. Karen looked triumphant, like she'd just served me a cease and desist with a side of smug. And then it was my turn. Without saying a word, I reached into my folder, pulled out a neat stack of printouts, and began passing them down the table. They were screenshots, still shots, receipts, waivers, labels, clear as day. Karen didn't know it yet, but the temperature in that room was about to rise. And this time, she wouldn't be able to blame the wings. Video stills displayed on the screen clearly showing tray labels, the waiver basket, and signs that read "Consume at your own risk." The room's energy shifted. Board members leaned in with interest. Karen leaned back, arms crossed. I spoke with steady calm. No theatrics needed. I pointed out that the food had been clearly labeled, the waivers were in plain view, and I had never invited anyone beyond my original group of 5. Then I reminded them that Karina, not me, had promoted the event without my knowledge. She had used flyers, group chats, and even public announcements to spread the word. One of the board members raised an eyebrow and asked Karen if she had a copy of the flyer. She did and brought it out like it was a piece of damning evidence. Instead, it blew up in her face. My name was splashed across the top in bold letters, right next to a cartoon of a smiling chef. I asked her who had designed it. She said she had. I asked if she had my written permission to use my name. She said she assumed I'd be okay with it. I turned to the board and smiled. That's the issue right there, the assumption. No consent, no coordination, just a rogue event hosted at my home without any approval. Karen's expression tightened. Her self-appointed lawyer stammered something vague about community expectations. A board member held up the photo of the waiver and asked if it was real. I nodded. He gave a slow shake of his head. Looks pretty clear to me. Mr. Arnold sighed audibly, looking like he wished he were anywhere else. After a moment of silence, he finally said, while the event clearly got out of hand, we can't find you in violation of any community rules. He then added there would be a formal review into how events are approved moving forward, to avoid future confusion. Karen's jaw clenched so tightly I could practically hear her molars grind. She shot up from her chair, knocking it over as she stormed out without a word. Her so-called lawyer scrambled after her, dropping his briefcase on the way. As the room emptied, I received a few nods and subtle thumbs-ups. One woman leaned in and whispered, "I've never seen Karen lose before, not in public." I smiled, thanked her, and walked out with my head high and my blood pressure blissfully stable. Outside, I took a deep breath and exhaled. I knew it wasn't over. Karen was never one to lose quietly. But for now, this round was mine, and she knew it. The next few days were eerily quiet. No Facebook posts from Karen, no HOA patrols, not even one of her signature passive-aggressive chats on sidewalk decor or trash bin placement. It was as if she had gone underground. Then Sunday arrived. Every house on the block received a hand-delivered invitation. Karen was hosting an apology brunch at the community center. No mention of the barbecue incident, just a vague promise to reconnect and move past recent tensions. I hadn't planned to go. It was clearly a PR move. But then my friend Tyler called. He'd received a screenshot from a private HOA chat. Karen had told a select few that the brunch was actually a screening of her edited video from the BBQ. She planned to play clips that made her look like the victim, twist the narrative, and pin it all on me. I laughed. Then I got to work. I arrived at the brunch 15 minutes early, wearing the same composed look I had at the board hearing. With me, a laptop, portable speaker, and a small projector. I asked the manager for permission to set up during open floor time. He agreed. Karen hadn't arrived yet, but neighbors were already sipping orange juice and nibbling on mini quiches. I loaded up the real footage and not her cherry-picked edit of the uncut recordings from every camera angle. Just as Karen walked through the door, I pressed play. The room filled with familiar sounds, cheers from the crowd, Karen barking instructions, signs clearly warning about the heat. Then came her bite of the wing, the shift in her expression, the panic, the hose, the Milka, and finally, her yelling accusations as waiver forms fluttered in the background. Laughter rippled through the room almost immediately. A few gasped, others tried and failed to stifle their chuckles. Karen stood frozen in the doorway, brunch tray trembling in her hands. Karen saw the video and the reactions on everyone's faces. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. Then, a single clap, another. Soon the entire room erupted into applause. It was merciless, it was magnificent. She dropped the brunch tray and left without saying a word. The projector kept playing. I let the footage loop twice. No one stopped it. By the end, even the most impartial neighbors were giving me quiet smiles, the kind usually reserved for hometown heroes or cooking show judges after a flawless finale. Later that night, a note slid under my door. No return address, no signature, just 4 words, "She won't be back." I smiled, poured myself a drink, and raised a glass to the paused screen, where Karen's tear-streaked face looked like a freeze frame from a nature documentary titled "When Volcanoes Explode." Justice hadn't just been served, it had been plated, garnished, and presented under a flaming silver dome. As for Karen's brunch, let's just say no one asked for seconds. 2 days after the now infamous brunch screening, I woke up to find another note taped to my front door. It wasn't the HOA's usual formal notice with letterhead and stamps. And it wasn't Karen's signature passive-aggressive cursive, it was handwritten, in blue ink, short and strangely humble. "Sorry about everything, you were right." Below that, scribbled hastily, "Karen." I stared at it for a while, not quite sure if it was real or just some kind of prank. Even Max gave it a cautious sniff, as if expecting it to detonate. This was the same woman who launched a community-wide smear campaign, disrupted my peaceful weekend, and tried to drag me in front of a board for serving spicy wing. A note didn't feel like enough, but something about Ida the crooked handwriting, the slightly smudged ink felt different. It wasn't her usual performance. It felt like defeat, or maybe even shame. Either way, it marked a shift. For the first time since the whole BBQ war started, Karen went silent, and she stayed that way. The week that followed was blissfully uneventful. No flyers in mailboxes, no neighborhood bulletins, no complaints about lawn edges or garbage bin placement. Karen's daily patrols vanished. Some neighbors guessed she had gone to stay with family. Others thought she was hiding in embarrassment. A few cynics believed she was just regrouping for a dramatic comeback. I didn't care either way. My grill was back to normal. My weekends were mine again. My food blog, booming. The Ghost Wing incident video crossed 100,000 views. A regional hot sauce company even sent me a care package with a note that read, "Thanks for putting our fire to good use." And then I got invited to speak on a local radio segment about food safety and HOA drama. Apparently, my story had reached near mythical status among homeowners associations across the state. That's when the most unexpected letter arrived. It was from the HOA board. Every year, the community hosts neighborhood celebration diadel event usually marked by folding chairs, lukewarm potato salad, and long speeches about driveway violations. But this year, they wanted something different, something fun, something people would actually enjoy. The letter read, "We would like to formally invite Jay Thomas to be our guest of honor and host for this year's community cook-off." I nearly choked on my coffee. Me, the guy Karen tried to sue for culinary misconduct, now the headliner of the neighborhood's biggest annual event? I reread the letter twice to make sure I wasn't imagining it, but there it was, signed by the board president and 2 other members who, not too long ago, voted with Karen on just about everything. The tide had clearly turned, and now they wanted me to ride the wave. I agreed on one condition: I could cook whatever I wanted, however I wanted, with the message I wanted to send. They didn't hesitate. "We'd love that," they said. "We trust your judgment." That part almost made me laugh. Just weeks ago, they'd been questioning my intentions. Now, they were handing me the main stage. So I started planning. What I came up with wasn't just a recipe, it was a statement. A final course to wrap up the entire saga. When the day arrived, the park buzzed with booze, music, and more people than I'd seen gather since the last HOA election scandal. Balloon arches, face painters, even a bounce house filled the scene. But right at the center stood my booth, a simple white tent with one big wooden sign that read "Community Feast." No surprises, just spice. The air was rich with the smell of smoked meats, garlic, and carefully balanced chili. This time, no ghost peppers, no pranks, no waiver forms, just good food of the kind meant to bring people together, not blow their taste buds apart. I served wings, ribs, and vegetarian dishes, each clearly labeled with mild to medium spice level so no fire alarms needed. The line grew fast. I spotted familiar faces of the same neighbors who had cried into the garden hose at my last event. They laughed about it now. Several even asked if I'd saved a ghost pepper wing for nostalgia's sake. I just smiled, said maybe, and winked as though I hadn't. I wanted this day to be clean, something different, a proper ending. That's when I saw her, Karen. She stood at the edge of the crowd and not dressed up. No clipboard or sun-hotted, just jeans, a plain blouse, and a tired look. Our eyes met briefly, then she looked away. Neither of us waved, but she walked slowly toward the booth, got in line like everyone else, and when it was her turn, simply said, "One order, please." I handed her a plate. She nodded and stepped aside to eat quietly at a nearby table, blending in for once instead of looming like a storm cloud. I said nothing. I didn't need to. Later that afternoon, the board presented me with a small plaque. It read, Community Builder Award. In recognition of resilience, humor, and unmatched grilling. People clapped. Someone joked about installing a warning sign on my driveway. I gave a short, simple speech, a thank you, a few words about respecting each other's boundaries, and a reminder that spicy food should always come with a heads up. It earned a few laughs. One board member shook my hand and said, "You turned a food fight into a community event." I smiled and replied, "Well, they say revenge is best served cold, but I prefer it slow-cooked and less messy." As the sun dipped low and the event wound down, kids ran around with painted faces, parents packed up chairs, and music faded into soft chatter. I stood by the grill, cleaning up. When Karen walked over, she looked at the plaque, then at me. "You didn't have to be that nice," she said. "I could have made this worse for you." I nodded slowly. "You did, but it's over now." She looked like she wanted to say more, but didn't. Just a small nod. Then she walked away, and just like that the saga was finally over. That night, back on my porch with Max curled at my feet, I watched the quiet street bathed in porch light. It felt like the whole neighborhood had exhaled. I sipped my drink, checked my blog comments with thousands of likes, a dozen new followers, and uploaded one final video, a calm thank you montage from the cook-off, set to mellow jazz. No chaos, no yelling, just smiles, sauce, and second chances. Before bed, I updated my blog's subtitle. It used to say, "Recipes for One." Now it read, "Recipes for Everyone," with a little warning in parentheses, "unless Karen's organizing it." Max barked once, like he approved. For the first time in weeks, I slept without thinking about wings, waivers, or war. The fire had burned out, but the flavor, that would last forever.